Hey, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley. Welcome back to Steelers Almighty, the fastest growing Steelers channel on YouTube. Appreciate everybody being here. We have got a great show for you guys today. Up first, it is the end of the Mike Tomlin era. We're going to discuss the highs and lows and what's next, all that good stuff about Mike Tomlin. Then Pat Fryermuth, ladies and gentlemen, he needs a makeover. This year was, I'll go ahead and say it, it was a waste year for Pat Fryermuth, but I don't think it was his fault. So we're going to discuss that. Is it now? When now for the new coach? A lot of talk out there about how we're going to struggle and it's okay to struggle. But do we have to? So we're going to discuss that. And then what's next at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, ladies and gentlemen? You're going to want to stick around and make sure you hear what I have to say about what the Steelers need to do at quarterback. So, again, appreciate everybody being in here weekly. You can find us at youtube.com/Steelers Almighty. If you have social media, want to find Steelers Almighty there, we are on all social media platforms. And if you prefer the audio version of this podcast, anywhere that you get your podcasts, make sure you subscribe to Steelers Almighty. So let's get started. Remember, like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in the comments, and always hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. Let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen. So it is the end of an era of Mike Tomlin. Some are celebrating it. In my opinion, they're going way overboard with the celebration of Mike Tomlin. The reason that I say that is while I was one that wanted Mike Tomlin out as the head coach, I wanted a new direction because I thought that the coaching had gone stale. I just thought it was time for a change. Sometimes you just need something different. But to celebrate it like the Steelers were a 5-12 team, in my opinion, is insane. Like people are screaming, jumping for joy, and yeah, we did it. I'm like, okay, I get that we want a new coach, but again, you're acting like the Steelers were 5-12 for the last 5 years. That is not the case. And oh, by the way, it's also not like Mike Tomlin wasn't a good coach. People are acting like he wasn't a good coach. Two things can be true. He can be a good coach, and it's also time for the Pittsburgh Steelers to move on. So the vitriol that people have for Mike Tomlin, I think is silly. Again, I was a guy that wanted I've been saying it since the beginning of this channel. The Steelers know a different direction. We got to go in a different direction. But that doesn't mean Mike Tomlin stinks. This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley. Welcome back. Now, here's the thing. Why did he step down? Reports, and again, reports are that Tomlin became disenfranchised and felt, underappreciated. Now, how much of that is true? I don't know. You listen to national media tell you, well, if he's in his home stadium and people are yelling, fire Mike Tomlin, he got tired of that. Well, the only reason that people were saying that is because the play inside the stadium, as Mike Tomlin used to always say, in stadium was bad. If the play was good, like you didn't hear those chants in the Ravens game, you didn't hear that, okay? You heard the chants because the play was pathetic. Not just that the Steelers lost, that they got embarrassed. You heard those things. Well, you're going to hear those things, especially after 19 years, 9 years of not winning a playoff game. The last 7, you're getting your head beat in. Yeah, man, there's going to be some vitriol that comes with that, and 19 years is a long time, for anything outside, I guess, of marriage. It's okay to be in your marriage longer than that. But having said that, it's a long time for a professional football coach. And again, I've said it. A lot of people say it was just time to go in a different direction. Now, what were some of the problems? Look, to me, some of the problems were, I think, talent. People talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and over the last 5 years, how talented of a football team were we? Well, I can break it down. The offensive line, the offensive line was trash. Now I'm not saying it was necessarily trash this year, but previous years, Yeah, since 2000, the offensive line has not been very good. And that's an understatement, especially 2001 and 2000 or 2021 in 2022. And I guess I should say since the year 2020, the offensive line has been trash, not the year 2000. I apologize. But from the year 2020, from then on, bad offensive line play. Two, look at the defense, overpriced, old, and just not great. So you have a combination of that. Now, again, I'm also a person that says Mike Tomlin's responsible for bringing this talent in. I know there's people out there that want to push back and, oh, it was Kevin Colbert. And I'm not telling you Kevin Colbert was good. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is I just don't want to hear the nonsense of people telling me or anybody else that Mike Tomlin, after being with the Steelers for 19 years as the head coach, that he didn't have a tremendous say on who was on the roster, who got drafted, who got brought in for free agency. It has Mike Tomlin's hands all over it. And to deny that, you're just being foolish. You're just being foolish. And so the talent just hasn't been great. Let's just call it over the last 5 years. It just hasn't. Now, scheme wise, if you want to push back on who is in charge of the Pittsburgh Steelers as far as personnel, fine. What you cannot push back on is the scheme and the assistant coaches. Mike Tomlin is 100% responsible for all of it. And you can say, well, he's a defensive coach. Well, first, let's start there. The defense, the schematics. You have heard from countless players, previous Pittsburgh Steelers, opponents of Pittsburgh Steelers, tell you, yeah, their scheme wasn't very difficult. Yeah, I mean, it never changed. We understood what they were going to do. They were going to always be in the same spot. They were easy to figure out. Yeah, this is pretty basic stuff, what we're running. We just rely on our personnel being better than your personnel to be able to get it done. But as far as schematics wise, not anything different. We have heard from countless players say we're running. We just rely on our personnel being better than your personnel to be able to get it done. But as far as schematics wise, not anything different. We have heard from countless players say that. So you can't push back and you can't deny that. Also, assistant coaches. Who are the good assistants? Like what good assist? I mean, everybody talks about his coaching tree. Coaching tree, I don't really care if somebody goes off to become a head coach away from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't care about that. I really don't. But what I do care about is if nobody's going off to do that, how good were these guys? That's my only thing is it's not so much that, hey, they left the Steelers to be a head coach. Good for them. But if nobody's going, well, while you're with the Pittsburgh Steelers, how good were you? And that's where my problem is. Nobody was good enough to even do that. And that's my problem. No coaching tree. And it just, how good were the assistants that Mike Tomlin was hiring to bring in? That's my problem. Assistants after LeBeau and Arians and even Todd Haley. And look, Todd Haley thing was a Ben Roethlisberger thing. Okay, Todd Haley got brought in by Mike Tomlin. Todd Haley was a good assistant coach. Ben Roethlisberger didn't like Todd Haley, and that's why he was no longer with Pittsburgh. You had to choose one. You're always going to choose the player as long as he's in his prime and he's not causing problems. You're choosing your quarterback, period, end of story. But other than that, nothing. Now let's talk about what is Mike Tomlin's legacy with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, it was a successful, tenure. And to deny that Mike Tomlin was successful at the Pittsburgh Steelers is just wrong. Look, other than Chuck Noll, nobody's won more than one Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know that Bill Cowher is beloved, and I'm not saying he shouldn't be, but he won one Super Bowl. He went to another one and lost. Mike Tomlin won one Super Bowl, went to another one and lost. And I know, well, he went with Bill Cowher's players. And even though Bill Cowher the last year went 8-8. And I know Ben Roethlisberger got in a motorcycle accident, and I get it, and he didn't play, got suspended. I totally understand, but they still win 8-8. Okay, so it's not like the game. I know. Well, he went with Bill Cowher's players, and even though Bill Cowher the last year went 8-8, and I know Ben Roethlisberger got in a motorcycle accident, and I get it, and he didn't play, got suspended. I totally understand, but they still win 8-8. Okay, so it's not like you handed off a team that had just won the Super Bowl. That's not what happened. And regardless, if you take a team to the Super Bowl, I don't buy into the Cowher players thing. I don't buy into that. Again, you talk about, well, it was Bill Cowher's play. Bill Cowher won one Super Bowl with those players. He didn't win like 8, 9. He didn't do that. He won one with these players that we're talking about. Well, then Mike Tomlin stepped in and he won one with those same players. So it's not like that Bill Cowher won 75 Super Bowls with these guys that we're saying are the greatest players on earth. He won one. And so did Mike Tomlin. Now, whether you want to think that they're the same level, that's a different conversation. Having said all that, it's crazy to say that Mike Tomlin's time period in Pittsburgh wasn't a success. Clearly it was. Again, I don't put too much stock in the no losing season thing because the last 6-7 years, it hasn't meant anything. Now, if the Steelers were going to AFC championship games every 2 or 3 years, then I would put some stock in it. I really would, because then you could say, hey, man, this guy, we just can't get over that hump to get to the Super Bowl, but we're going to AFC championship game. We're doing all these things. That was not the case. It was just not the case. And as far as, well, he can't do it without a quarterback and nobody does it without a quarterback, you would be right. But whose fault was that? Whose fault? I mean, Mike Tomlin could have brought in a new quarterback. Well, Ben didn't allow. Well, Ben didn't have a choice. Ben plays for the Steelers. What, was Ben going to opt out of his contract because they brought in a new quarterback? No. Steelers just didn't do it. And they should have. They should have drafted a quarterback when number 7 was going to retire, and they did not do that. And it set us back. That is on Mike Tomlin. But overall, his tenure as a coach with Pittsburgh was an absolute success. And to deny that, you're just being ridiculous. And I think you're being ridiculous. And two things can also be true. You can sit here and say, just like I am, that Mike Tomlin's tenure with Pittsburgh was an absolute success. And you can also sit here and say, but it was also time for him to leave. And I don't think you're wrong for either and having that opinion. You're not sitting on the fence by having that opinion. It's just, I mean, are people going to tell you that Bill Belichick wasn't a success in New England because the last 2 years they were absolutely horrible? No, they're not going to tell you that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not comparing Mike Tomlin to Bill Belichick. But I would say Andy Reid in Philadelphia, he was successful there. Never won a Super Bowl. Only went to one. It was very successful there. He got fired. And then he went on somewhere else. So things can happen, man. It's just sometimes it's time for a change. It's time for a change. And just because you've been successful doesn't mean it isn't your time to leave. Look, nothing is promised in this world. It is not a lifetime achievement thing to coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sometimes it's just time to go. I think this is best for everybody. I said it last night on the Big Show. I think this is the best situation for everybody. The Steelers can get a fresh start with fresh ideas, and so can Mike Tomlin. He can get a fresh start. And what's next for him? The reports are coming out. He's going to take a year off. I think he should. I mean, Mike Tomlin would be television gold with all the Tomlinisms and everything that he comes up with. Absolute gold. Now, there's going to be people that hate him no matter what. But to be honest, if he was winning football games, the Tomlinisms we could live with. It was when he wasn't winning playoff games is where we got fed up with it. That's where we started. Okay, we don't want to hear this anymore, man. I would rather you not say a word and win me a couple playoff games a year. That's where it got with most fans. If we were winning, we would love it. But because we weren't winning playoff games, we didn't like them anymore. But on television, shoot, I'll listen to him. I'll listen to Mike Tomlin all day long, talk and give us the Tomlinisms. Absolutely. I think that's probably what's best. Keep this or peep this out. CBS has a new job that's opening up. Matt Ryan just became the head, whatever you want to call it, the executive VP or whatever for the Atlanta Falcons, basically running things for the Falcons. Bill Cowher works for CBS. Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin on the same set talking football. I'll listen. I'll tune in. I'm just saying, Coach Tomlin, there's an opportunity, and CBS would 1,000,000% love to have both of those guys on. So it can work out for everybody, man. This is just where we are as a fan base right now. It's okay to appreciate Mike Tomlin for what he did. Say that, hey, it could have been more, and we thought it was going to be more. We expected more. And even be let down that it wasn't more. Of course. All of those things are true. But what else is true is that Mike Tomlin was successful with the Pittsburgh Steelers. His tenure was a success. Was it what we all wanted? No. Do you think it was what he wanted? No. But two things, again, can be true. Let's go to the poll question, people. Poll question 1. Which aspect of Tomlin's coaching do you believe had the most impact on the Steelers? Oh, I know. Well, he went with Bill Cowher. Poll question 1. Which aspect of Tomlin's coaching do you believe had the most impact on the Steelers? A, consistent winning seasons. B, player management and mentorship. We've heard a lot of former players talk about that here in the last 24 hours. C, defensive strategies. Or D, offensive struggles and lack of evolution. Yeah, that was Mike Tomlin thing. He had his finger on the offense. So, but make sure you put a 1 in front of your answer so we know exactly what poll question you are answering. Let's move on. So, Pat Freiermuth needs a complete makeover, ladies and gentlemen. There are reports that after the game with the Texans that Pat Freiermuth couldn't even talk in the locker room. He was so frustrated after the game. Just couldn't even bring himself to do an interview. And I believe it. Look, I'm not going to sit here and be a hypocrite and tell you that I didn't call for Pat Freiermuth to be traded earlier in the season. And part of the reason that I said that was, well, they're doing a lot of stuff with Jonnu. Darnell Washington clearly is a better blocker, and they're starting to get him involved in the passing game. You don't need 3 tight ends. And if they're not going to use Muth, move on. Well, it turns out, as Jonnu started moving forward, he couldn't get the job done, not to mention he was a horrendous blocker, just a waste of a trade for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when Pat Freiermuth was actually given opportunities, he came through. So I can admit when I was wrong. I flat out, I said he needed to be traded. I was dead wrong. There's nothing wrong with admitting that. And we just never gave him the opportunity. The refusal to use Pat Freiermuth, I think, is where it comes in for me, because that's clearly what it was. It was just a refusal to use him. And I don't know why. Like, there's nothing that you could point to say, yeah, we just don't need to use Pat Freiermuth in this situation. 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, nope, we don't need Pat Freiermuth. I just didn't understand it. And here's the thing. Now, he got better as a blocker. I'm not saying Pat Freiermuth is never going to be confused with a good blocker, okay? He's never going to be confused with that. But if you watched him from his rookie year to now, you can clearly see that he's gotten better. He has. Is it great? No. Are you ever going to confuse him with Darnell Washington blocking on the edge? No, you're not. But he got the job done. And again, you know me, I always say a lot of times, man, if you can just get in the way, especially out there on the edge, just get in the way of somebody and make them run around you. That's half the battle. And Freiermuth was doing that. He was giving the effort. He's not very good at it, but he was giving the effort, and that's all you can ask. Give us the effort. And I'm just not sure what Arthur Smith's issues were with Pat Fryermuth. I just don't know. Like, if you watch film and you watch the game, again, we're not in there in the film rooms, we're not watching practice, but we all watch the damn games. What in any game did you see that you said, yeah, we should use Jonnu Smith over Pat Fryermuth here? Or the constant spending too much time using Pat Fryermuth to help chip because you're worried about your tackles. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be, but you're using Pat Fryermuth to do that, and then he's the guy that just leaks out. Well, come on, man. What are we doing here? We spent way too much time doing that versus getting him out in pass routes. And anytime we threw the ball over the middle to Pat Fryermuth when it wasn't in triple coverage, if he had an opportunity to just break free or get free, he usually made the play. And that is my problem with how they use Pat Fryermuth. He makes too much money to be a decoy. He makes way too much money to just be a decoy. So, I mean, $12 million a year for a guy that you're not going to use. Well, what's the point? And that's part of my problem with what the Pittsburgh Steelers did, is that he's making this money and you're not going to utilize him. Doesn't make sense, man. Doesn't make sense. Let's go to the poll. I'm not. Poll question number 2. What's the most important factor for Pat Fryermuth's success in the Steelers offense? Is it A, increased targets and receptions, B, improvement in blocking, C, more offensive play calls tailored for him, or D, being part of a trade for better players? Pretty intriguing. Pretty intriguing. Make sure you put a 2 in front of your answer so we know exactly what poll question you're answering. Let's go to the halftime people. Got better as a blocker. I'm not saying Pat Fryermuth is never going to be confused with a good blocker. Okay? He's never going to be confused with that. But if you watched him from his rookie year to now, you can. So I thank each and every one of you guys for all your support, man. We are coming up. It's getting closer to our 2-year anniversary. April 4th, 2024 is when we started this thing. So I appreciate all the support that you guys has given us. We absolutely appreciate it. Also, if you want to become a member, man, we have got 5 different levels as far as membership. So make sure you sign up. We got the Hall of Fame level for watch parties to watch the game. All 22. We have those to be broken down that we break down for our all pro levels. So we got a lot of different things for you guys. And just so you know, we are probably going to be changing some of our schedule for the off season. But the one thing I know for sure, we are not going to slow down, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely not. Steelers Almighty, we are just getting started. The off season comes and we crank it up a notch because we're going to have a lot of different stuff for you guys. So appreciate you guys. And off season's just beginning, man. So let's get to it. Got to put a pause here. I got to move my seat up. Ooh. All right. Oh. All right. So is it now for a new coach? Like, is it time for a new coach to win now for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Now, remember earlier, I told you that Mike Tomlin is not handing over a team that's been 5-12 the last couple of years. So we're handing over a team that the last 2 years has won 10 football games. Now, we can have that debate on how we won those 10 games, but the fact still remains 10 games. We won 20 football games over the last 2 years. Made the playoffs, won a division. So is it win now? Now, a lot of people out there say that, well, it's going to take a couple years and we should expect to struggle. And well, Mike Tomlin didn't struggle when he got handed the job. And that was from an 8-8 football team. And I don't care how we got to 8-8. You can debate that all you want. The record for the Pittsburgh Steelers the year before Mike Tomlin was the coach was 8-8. This season, 10-7, 10-8 if you count playoffs. So should it be win now? Are we going to have the patience? Well, here's the thing. Let's break it down a little bit. First off, the Steelers got a lot of holes. Let's not act like the Steelers don't have holes. Like, we obviously need a wide receiver. I take that back. We need a completely new wide receiver room. We need an absolute overhaul in the wide receiver room. And anybody who doesn't believe so is either you're not a fan of the Steelers, you've never seen the Steelers play, you're kidding yourself. The Steelers need a complete overhaul. And that can include DK Metcalf, in my opinion. I'm ready to start all over in the wide receiver room. The Steelers need O-line help. They absolutely do. You know you're going to need a new left guard because Siamalu's not coming back. The Steelers should not re-sign him. He's probably going to retire. But even if he doesn't, that's not our starting left guard next year. And other than Zach Frazier, I like the right side of the line, but I'm not opposed to having competition at every other position on the line. Right guard, right tackle, left tackle. I'm not opposed to having competition. I like Troy Fautanu. I like Mason McCormick. I think they'll be even better with a better O-line coach. I think they will absolutely be better. But I'm not opposed to having competition. So we definitely need to boost our O-line. We obviously need a cornerback opposite Joey Porter Jr., and we need more. I've told you before, cornerbacks are like offensive linemen. You can never have enough of them. And the same way with pass rushers. You can never have enough of those guys. You can never have enough of those guys. So we definitely need another corner. Again, who's going to be the full-time starter? We going to sign James Pierre? We going to draft the guy? What does Asante Samuel Jr. look like? What does all that look like? Steelers got to make a decision opposite Joey Porter Jr. Inside linebacker. Y'all know me. The Patrick Queen experiment needs to be over. It needs to be over. I'm not even saying that Patrick Queen was terrible, but for the money, not good enough. Not good enough. It's time to move over. Is not the physical type linebacker that the Pittsburgh Steelers need. We got to go a different direction. And I'm sorry, I like Peyton Wilson, but damn it, if Peyton Wilson can't be on the field all the time and he's got to come out and run situations, that's not the guy. It just isn't the guy. Maybe if Patrick Queen's not there, maybe Peyton Wilson will be the guy. I don't know, but we absolutely need an inside linebacker, either in free agency or within the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. Steelers got to address that. Already said corner. Safety. And Steelers got to get a safety. Jalen Ramsey, I like Jalen Ramsey, but for $24 million, absolutely not. I said this when Mika Fitzpatrick was the safety. I said, I like Mika. They're not asking him to do a lot, but he was making at the time $18 million to do what he did. That was way too much. $24 million to do even less than what Mika was doing? No. No. Steelers need a safety. And again, you can go in the draft. You can go free agency. I would love Jalen Ramsey to come back, but he's got to take a massive, massive pay cut. I don't think he's going to do that. But the fact of the matter is, nobody is going to pay Jalen Ramsey $24 million for whatever he brings to the table. That isn't going to happen. So Pittsburgh Steelers either got to say, look, we're going to restructure you, give you some guaranteed money. This is what it is. It's going to be a lot less, but do you want to stay? Yes or no? And then D-line. Steelers got to go D-line. Look, I think we probably have a replacement for Cam, but we also need some edge rushers. I think TJ, I love TJ, but TJ's about at his rope's end. He's about there. We saw it even before he got hurt. Don't talk to me about the last 2 games that he played that he was hurt. Before that, we saw it from TJ, and it wasn't just because he was getting chipped and doubled. I'm sorry, we saw a guy in our own division set the sack record that was getting chipped and double teamed more than TJ Watt was. Just TJ is about at the end of his rope. It happens, people. Love the guy, but we need someone else. We got to get someone else. So it's not that the Steelers don't have holes. They don't. The current roster still has talent too. So I don't want you to think that just because we have holes doesn't mean we still don't have talent. We got a young offensive line. And again, Y.A. Black, Keanu Benton, if you were going to keep Benton around, which you know he's going to be there next year, Derek Harmon. We've got guys, and Cam is still there. And I know people are saying, I'll just tell, I think Big G is nuts talking about you got to get rid of Cam. The guy was a second team All Pro. I'm here to tell you, even if Cam falls off next year, okay, well, let's have him prove that he's going to fall off. But you don't need to get rid of him. There is no reason to get rid of Cam. Make him show us, okay, yeah, it's over. Fine. But you just don't send second team All Pros that are still under contract. You don't get rid of those guys. So the Steelers got talent. They got a talented running back room. I think they got to re-sign Kenneth Gainwell, and pair him with Jaylen Warren. I think we have an incredible tandem. So Gainwell's going to be tough because he's going to command more money, but the Steelers should be able to make that happen. We've got a lockdown corner. I mentioned it, Joey Porter Jr. He has proven himself to be that guy. So we've got some things here. So it's not that the cupboard is bare. Again, it's a 10-win football team. It's not bare. Change is not going to be easy, but does it have to be? My whole thing is, how patient are we going to be? Like I mentioned, win now. Are we ready to win now? Okay. Can we win now? Should we expect to win now? I think it's about a 50-50 split. There's 50% of people out there, Steeler fans, that are saying, hey, man, you wanted Tomlin gone. You need to keep winning. Okay. And there's the other half that say, hey, Tomlin's not here. Change is bumpy. It has to be bumpy, but it doesn't have to be. We have seen it, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the New England Patriots. They were horrific. They made a coaching change. They're better. Chicago Bears, same thing. Terrible. They made a coaching change. Number 2 seed. Same as New England. It doesn't have to be bumpy. It doesn't have to be. I'm not saying it won't be, and I'm not even saying I won't give grace if it isn't. Because, again, you wanted your coach gone, and it can be bumpy to get the right things in place, but the Steelers have some things in place. They got a ton of draft picks. They've got free agency. They've got money to spend. Like, the Steelers are in a good spot to get this thing turned around next year. It can happen. So I'm going into it with my eyes wide open, saying we don't have to be bad. If we put together a good roster, the Steelers should be good. But there's one big element that the Steelers don't have, and we're going to get to that next. But how patient do we want to be? How patient are we going to be? It's a big question, man. It's a big question. Let's go to the poll, because to me, it's tricky. How patient are we going to be? Poll 3. Which position do you think needs the most immediate improvement this season? Is it A, wide receiver, B, quarterback, C, cornerback, or D, inside linebacker? Tricky question. I think I got the answer, but make sure you put a 3 in front of your answer so we know what poll question you are answering. Let's move on. So what's next at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Well, the first thing is Aaron Rodgers should not be an option. I'll just start that off. I like what Aaron Rodgers did for us. He was a bridge. He was a 1-year. Didn't win a playoff game, which is what he was brought here to do. That did not happen. I'm not blaming it all on Aaron Rodgers. I'm not going to do that. But facts are still facts. Came in, we didn't win a playoff game. 42 years old. Maybe he wants to come back. I don't think so. We heard Art Rooney basically say he wasn't coming back because Art Rooney the second, excuse me, came and said, yeah, Aaron Rodgers, a big part of his decision to come to Pittsburgh was to play for Mike Tomlin. Well, Mike Tomlin is no longer the coach. Aaron Rodgers, I would say it's probably 97% isn't coming back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was probably 80% that he wasn't coming back anyway. Now that Mike Tomlin is back, hell, I'll bump it up to 99% he's not coming back to the Steelers. So there's that. We got Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph is a backup, people. He is a backup. He started a game this year. It was terrible. We all watched that game in Chicago. I like Mason Rudolph, but Mason Rudolph is a career backup. So many people saying, well, Mason Rudolph never got an opportunity. Maybe not in Pittsburgh. Okay. But Mason Rudolph had opportunities to go other places. Like, he didn't have to sign back with Pittsburgh. And he got an opportunity in 2024 to play in Tennessee. Now, he wasn't the starter. Again, he wasn't the starter there immediately. And when he got the job, he was terrible. Now, I'm not going to pin that all on Mason Rudolph. I mean, first off, the Tennessee Titans, that franchise is pathetic. They had no weapons. Their offensive line was garbage. So it's tough to be good there. But can we just all be honest? Mason Rudolph is a backup quarterback. And there's nothing wrong with being a backup quarterback in the National Football League. But let's not make it more than what it is. He's a backup. Okay. He can spot duty, come in for time to time, but he's a backup. Now, the big question is Will Howard. So I've been on record that saying I don't think Will Howard is the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And there are so many fans that, Big B, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know ball. Will Howard's the future. And what they bring up is Tom Brady. And I'll even go Brock Purdy. They go, well, Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick. How'd that turn out? Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft. How'd that turn out? And both of those things are 100% true. But over the last 30 years, name me the 6th-round pick that a franchise said, yep, that's our guy. How? Just throw it out there. I'll let you do the research. How many times has a franchise said this 6th-round pick is going to be our guy? That's 32 teams over 30 years. Come on, guys. And again, I'm not telling you that Will Howard can't be the guy. It wouldn't make me more happy if Will Howard wasn't the guy. Yes, I hope he does win the job. Because if he wins it with good competition, then that means that Will Howard can play. I don't think that's necessarily the case to be the starter, but y'all know me. I just admitted earlier that I was wrong about Pat Freiermuth. I don't care about being wrong. I don't. I want to win. That's the only thing I want to do. So if I'm wrong about Will Howard being the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers, fine. I'm wrong. But I don't think I am. But I would love for him to prove that I'm wrong. Great. Go do it. Go do it. But I'll question you in this and ask you this question is how many franchises, again, we talk about Brock Purdy and we talk about Tom Brady about, hey, look at those examples and how did that turn out? The franchise didn't give those guys the job. Like, they didn't get the job. They didn't even win the job with competition. So for everybody that's saying that Will Howard is super talented, he was a 6th-round pick in a bad quarterback draft. But for everybody saying that he's super talented and then bring up those two guys, they didn't get the job because they won a competition. They got the job because other guys ahead of them got hurt. Hell, Brock Purdy needed 2 guys to get hurt for him to get the job. Now, it turned out that was the right decision. But let's not kid ourselves. They didn't just get handed a job. They had to earn it based on competition. So everybody that's just so Will Howard is the future, well, then let him go prove it. We're not just, okay, let's start Will Howard. That's it. We got a quarterback. No, we don't. No, we don't. We got to find the guy. And if he's in that competition and wins it, great. But we're not just handing anything over to him, ladies and gentlemen. That's not just going to happen. Now, some of the free agents that are out there, I think they're pretty limited. You know, everybody's talked about Malik Willis. And I like Malik Willis. Malik Willis is a guy, again, who struggled early in his career. But if we're going to give him the same latitude that we give Mason Rudolph about being in a horrible, I mean, he played for Tennessee, horrible organization, no weapons, terrible offensive line. If we're going to give Mason Rudolph that same grace, we got to give it to Malik Willis. Malik Willis goes to Green Bay under a quarterback coach and a head coach that are competent guys. He looks like an entirely different guy. Small sample size, though. Very small sample size. So what do you do with that? It's tricky. It's tricky. You know, the last time I saw something like that, remember Matt Flynn had a good preseason and then played a great set game, last game of the season for the Packers, ends up going to Seattle, gets a big money free agent deal. Russell Wilson comes in as a rookie and beats him out for the job. So I don't know a small sample size from Malik Willis, is that enough? I don't know. Because again, we've seen bad football from him in the mix. Okay. But I think we got to draft somebody. Now, Big G is said we don't take a quarterback in this draft because, the draft isn't good this year. We got to wait till next year. Well, said the same thing last year. Well, the draft isn't good this year. We got to wait till next year. Well, how long are we kicking the can down the road? Like, how long do we have to wait? It doesn't make sense. Now, again, the Steelers got holes. Let's not kid ourselves. They got a lot of holes that they got to fill. But let's take a look at some of the guys. Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. I like him. I like Mendoza. Heisman winner. I'm pretty sure they're going to win the national championship. He's played great. But here's the thing that I would say. Mendoza's an old guy, 6-year playing football, sometimes he's playing against kids. I'm not sure I'm ready to trust that. I like Mendoza. I think he's good. But are we willing to sell the farm for that? First of all, the Steelers got too many holes. The answer is no. Dante Moore. Put this in before the news came out about an hour ago. Dante Moore is going back to college. So that is a no-go. He said, I'm going back to college, and he should go back to college. Not to mention, Dante Moore's 20. He's going to be 20 next year. So, yeah, he's got some growing to do. Nothing wrong with him staying another year. Ty Simpson. I heard Colin Cowherd today, and I get it. Colin Cowherd has turned into a complete joke as far as it's all entertainment, no fat, just throwing stuff out. Not to mention he hates the Steelers. And he just throws ignorant stuff out now. Said the Steelers need to trade 6 draft picks for Ty Simpson. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I mean, how can anybody even take him serious anymore by saying stupid stuff like that? That's what I'm talking about. So is Ty Simpson the guy? Yeah, but we're not giving up 6 draft picks to draft that guy. Absolutely not. Then you got guys like Carson Beck, another old guy, 7 years of college football, just been okay with Miami. I'm not sure I'm ready to turn my franchise over to that. Drew Aller from Penn State really didn't do anything phenomenal at Penn State. Got hurt. Maybe you want to say he got his coach fired. I don't think so. I think that was more James Franklin on his own, but I don't know. Look, there's some guys, Cade Klubnik from Clemson. I mean, there's guys that are out there. Competition. I think we got to draft somebody. Hell, we took somebody in the 6th round last year. We can't take somebody earlier this year. And again, create competition. Create competition. And again, if you're not drafting somebody in the 1st round of this year's draft, then It's not necessarily kicking the can down the road, but we drafted somebody last year. We'll draft somebody this year. We're going to bring in a free agent, whoever that might be, and let them compete for the job. And if that guy does a good job, then we can move forward in the future. If they don't, and we're shuffling quarterbacks all around because we don't have one, then we can draft another one next year. Because people act like you can't just continuously take a quarterback. You can, especially when you're not taking one in the first round. You absolutely can. So I don't know who it's going to be. I wish it was easier than this. Maybe we could trade from somebody. Mac Jones isn't horrible. There's some, I wouldn't mind having Mac Jones again. Once he got around some competent quarterback play, Mac Jones didn't look bad in San Francisco this past year. What would he look like in a Steelers uniform around some competent quarterback coaching? He got around that, and he looked like a totally different guy. Hell, he kept the 49ers, because everybody kept getting hurt, including Brock Purdy. He kept them within distance so they could make the playoffs. So there's some people out there, people. There's some people. But let's go to the poll. Should be interesting. Poll 4. Which rookie QB do you believe has the most potential for the Steelers? A, Fernando Mendoza. B, Dante Moore. Yeah, he's not. C, Ty Simpson. D, Drew Aller. Or E, other. Somebody else that I just didn't put in there. And there's names out there, people. There are plenty of names out there. We don't have time to go into all of them. We got a whole offseason to do that. Make sure you put a 4 in front of your answer so we know exactly what poll question you are answering. So it has been, ladies and gentlemen, a whirlwind of a 48 hours. Steelers getting their head beat in by the Texans, and Mike Tomlin stepping down the very next day. And here we are. You know, it's been a whirlwind of emotions for a lot of us Steeler fans out there. And however you feel about Mike Tomlin, whether you love him, you hate him, or you're in between, the Steelers are moving on to a new chapter. And I'm not afraid of it. That chapter may be ugly early, and we may have to move on to another chapter after that. But at some point, a comment that I have said the first podcast that we had, mediocrity is the death of your franchise. And the Steelers were living in mediocrity the last 6 years. We just were. We know it. Whether you want to admit it or not, the Steelers were living in mediocrity the last 6 years. Something had to give. Something needed to change. Well, we got the change. So is it going to be good or bad? I'm voting for good. Too many Steeler fans or supposed Steeler fans are out there saying, well, can't wait till we're 3-14. Look out. Is that what you're rooting for? Are you rooting for us to be 3-14 because the coach of your team got fired? Or he didn't even get fired. He stepped down because he's no longer here. Now you want the team to be bad? Are you really a fan? Come on. Come on, man. Don't be that. It's okay. Things change in life. Just be a fan of the Steelers. I've said it many times. I don't care if it's a field mouse who coaches them. I don't care if it's a field mouse who the quarterback is. As long as we win, that should be the only thing that we care about. And winning at a level to where we can win everything. Mike Tomlin won. Mike Tomlin won. But Mike Tomlin was no longer winning at a championship level where you thought, okay, the Steelers have an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. We haven't thought that in a long time. In a long time. And if you don't have that hope, we can wish that we win a Super Bowl. But if you don't actually have the hope or the roster or the coaching, if you don't have that, then you're kidding yourselves. And most Steeler fans were not kidding themselves. We knew. Now we got to build it up to where we can start having that hope again, that feeling, that belief, because it's a sorry feeling knowing your team has no chance to win a Super Bowl. That's not fun. Steelers have been there too long, people. Just been there too long. That's all I got for you, man. Appreciate you guys. Thank you as always. Again, keep a lookout for possible schedule change. We'll let you know as the week goes on and things go on. We'll let you know exactly what we're going to do in the off season. Got to meet up and discuss all that. But the one thing I know, we're not going to slow down, not even a little bit, people. So appreciate you guys out there. Remember, like, follow, subscribe, continue to keep us or continue to get in the comments and always hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers almighty content comes out. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, aloha.